So these are TED's bullets. There's no magic bullet for studying for studying. It's 300 hours. But what you can do from the start is be a little bit more efficient. And one of the things that I said is the way that you study in level 3 when you get to hours 500, 600, 700 is not the same way that you studied when you first started the CFA. So one of the things that I try to do and coach people is say, okay, it was a learning curve for me. When I got to the end of it, these are the things that I was doing to become efficient. Studying's a skill. A lot of people come into this, they haven't studied in a while, they haven't studied for a multiple choice exam in a long time. And there's a lot of kind of exam techniques and tips that you feel you develop over time. But there's no magic bullet. There's no secret. It's really the probability for passing the exams is directly correlated, 100% positive correlation to the amount of hours you put in. And so I always recommend you have to have a detailed time budget. It's not the plan, it's the planning. Everyone comes into it with strengths and weaknesses in different areas. But one of the things that I did, as I said, if it's 300 hours and its economics is 10%, well then as a rough guide, that's 30 hours. And don't feel stressed out after 9 or 10 hours that you're not getting it, that it's difficult, because if you understand your study plan, you reevaluate how you feel at hours 26, 27, 28, you'll look back and you'll say, okay, that's fine. So I think for every candidate, you should have a very detailed study plan. If it's 300 hours, well, how many hours is that? How many months am I going to study? How many weeks am I going to study? Well, then how does that translate back to days? Well, during the weekdays, I'm a little bit busier. I'm doing it on the weekends. You really have to have it down to the hour by LOS. And as I said, it's not going to be the same for everyone, but that's the basic plan, that's the framework, and keep track of your progress. And that's one of the things that I like about the app is it definitely helps you become efficient, because I like the way that you can call up the quizzes. You can do the quick quiz after you've done a reading. You can do the custom tests. You can weight them a little bit harder. You can focus more on the quantitative questions or the theory questions. So depending on how you're feeling, you've got your energy level a little bit lower, than just do some ethics review and do the questions where you don't need to crank out any calculations. And it's all about going forward, going back and reviewing, because there's a huge mountain of stuff. So yeah, that's the point that I said already. The way that you study for level 3s is different. When to take time off work? Well, a lot of people plan to take a week off right before the exam, but that's not what I did. What I did is I always took a week off at the beginning of my process, so that if it's 300 hours and I took a week off and I did 40 hours, then I felt that right out of the gate I was up to 10 or 15% through some of the material. And to me, what that did for me is it motivated me that I feel like I've got some momentum from the beginning. Because if you leave things to the last, guaranteed, everyone knows how it goes. You get busy with work, busy with family. I found to take a big chunk of time at the beginning of the process, build up some momentum, I was more motivated to reach certain milestones. And in fact, for every level, I planned a little bit of holiday, at least a week to 2 weeks off towards the end of April to get away from. I'd stay a little bit on the holiday, but I'd say, okay, I've reached my target, my percentage target. One of the things that I'm going to talk about is there's no need to study the course in sequence. People come into it from different strengths. You just want to always feel that you're making progress day by day, hour by hour. So I'll go into the next. This is kind of an example of how to tackle the curriculum. So for example, for me, quantitative methods was my weakest area, because I didn't finish high school math. So I wanted to start with it. I wanted to tackle one of the harder areas and feel that I got on top of it. So, head first, confront what you don't think is your strongest area, because listen, your goal is to pass the test. You'll know you'll get on top of it, and once you've conquered one of your weaker areas, it'll help build your confidence. And then follow that once you've done a bit of hard work with an area that's easy, that's a little bit easier. For me, it was corporate finance. I was working in a large company in the planning department. So then I tackle something. I say, okay, that's great, and then for me, English is my first language, so I did ethics. It's all English. It's just words. It's the CFA in some cases is an English test, subject finance. And so you can see I did something hard, something a little bit easier than just the English. Now I'm a third of the way through. Do accounting. I had my CMA first. Wow, I'm halfway. I'm almost there. Now the portfolio management and equities, which I love the best. It's my favorite area. That's an easy, I call that an easy 17%. Whoa, I'm at 71% now. All right, I need to put my head down and tackle something that's not the most fun, fixed income derivatives. But hey, once I've done that, I'm there. End with economics and you're done. So it's going to be different for everyone. But my point is here, start with something difficult, and reward yourself with something a little bit easier. Then do something that you think will make you some progress. It doesn't have to be done, study session 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Manage your time that you're making progress. And so the key thing is that there's such a huge volume of material. You're going to move forward. You have to continually go and review back, because you won't remember. Okay, I tackled the quant in January. I started my process in January for the June exam. When I get to March, April, I can't remember all the quant. I got to cycle back, and that's why one of the things that I said is by having the LOS, it's 52 pages when you print it out. It's 26 pages double-sided. I always had 3 highlighter pens, pink, yellow, and green, and I use them as my stoplights. That okay, green is fine. I don't need to go back over and study it. Yellow, I'm getting it. I need a little bit more work. And pink, absolutely, I got to go back and check out some of these derivatives calculations. That's another thing I like about the software, is that it's giving me the dashboard, and I can go back and clearly see just from my own little testing. Yeah, I'm strong in portfolio management. It's a green zone. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I've gotten so many ethics questions wrong. Why I haven't read the JIPS in so long. The JIPS is very, very specific. I hadn't reviewed before I started using the app, the JIPS section. I got them all wrong, and the dashboard is giving me that it's all pink. And so that's doing kind of online with an app that I used to do by hand back in the day with a piece of paper and 3 different colored highlighters. So obviously, I think you can teach an old dog a new trick. I like the software. Otherwise, I wouldn't be hosting this webinar. Okay, and the other thing is that you can go back, you can review back. I can come back and do some practice problems. I can call up a quiz on that area. In the old days, we just had paper, old mock exams, or we'd have some practice exams. It was a little bit harder to go back and choose, oh, I only want to do questions on quant. I want to just go back and review the economics. I think technology now has made that process a lot easier. Okay, so now getting down to kind of the nitty-gritty for those of you that haven't studied or haven't started studying. This is a key point to make right up front, is that you have to look at the LOS, the Learning Outcome Statement, when you're starting a study session. That's the first thing I do. Okay, I'm going to start corporate finance. In fact, I'm teaching corporate finance in Dubai tomorrow night, by the way, in the Knowledge Village. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look, okay, that's study session 11, readings 35 to 40. Okay, I'm going to look at the learning outcomes, and then first I'm going to look, does it say describe? If it says describe, I know that the type of question is going to be, it's an English language test. I don't have to do any calculations. Anytime I see where I have to calculate, I'm going to highlight it, calculate it, calculate it, calculate, calculate, interpret net present value. I'm going to highlight that I need to do a calculation. I always highlight where I need to calculate. So I start by looking, what do I need to do in this reading? Then if you're using review notes, fine. We saw from the CFA facts that a lot of people, especially for level 1, are relying more heavily on the review notes than the curriculum. As I said, you have to rely on the curriculum in level 2, level 3, but level 1, people can get away with the review notes. So look at the LOS, then do the review notes. I recommend highly that I did all the CFA Institute readings. Then right after you've done the reading, practice the questions. Do it while you do it right when you're fresh. And when you get an answer wrong, go back to the review notes or go back to the text and say, okay, Where is that? Because as you saw from those statistics, the exam is fair. 90% of the respondents say, yeah, it's the questions were based on the LOS. So you do the practice problem, you got it wrong, you go back, you find which LOS was that, where was it in the reading. The universe for questions is not infinite. Once you've seen something once, you can spin it this way or spin it that way. But really, you're going to find that, again, as a function of time, yeah, I've seen this question, and I've seen the way that they flip it, and now I'm seeing it again. So as I always say to candidates, fool me once, shame on you. And for sure, I was never getting questions right the first time. I was always being fooled. But fool me twice, shame on me. So you have to do as many practice problems as possible, because then you start to see, honestly, I showed up for level 2 exam, and so much of it you say, yeah, I've seen this. Yeah, this is fair. This is exactly the way that I've seen it in the curriculum, and it's the way that I've practiced it. But that takes time, okay? Some of the tips, yeah, as I said, you got to use the CFA readings 100% for level 2 and level 3. Level 1, that's I personally recommend it. I know everyone's not doing it. Study aids, one of the things, as I said, question banks. Aptudo is a great one, but it doesn't have to be an either-or decision. Back in the old days, there wasn't much choice. Now there is more choice. I think there's strengths and weaknesses to each. I've told you some of the things that I think which is great about the Aptudo, but these things complement each other. The more time that you have, and the more money that you have, it doesn't have to be an either or. I'm using this is all that I'm using. I think some of these products, like the videos, I think the videos from maybe this one company is great. I'm using his videos. I've gotten access to them. I'm using the QBank from here. I'm using the Aptudo because I have to commute a lot, and I like being able to do questions from the iPad. So you have to find what's working best for you in terms of, but at the end of the day, it's all about the efficiency, what you're using when, and what's giving you the best bang for your time dollar, okay? So some of my tips, be comfortable with your calculator, absolutely. Back in my day, there was no YouTube videos. Now I see there are some. You've got to, speed is a skill gets rewarded. You've got to be fast on your calculator. You got to be comfortable on it, okay? That becomes, I think the quantitative questions, I didn't finish math. I hate it. By the end of level 3, I love the quantitative questions because I know they're black and white. If I know it and I've done the calculation, I can see I have no doubt I've got the answer right. Whether other versus the least likely, most likely, where sometimes it's economics, which was my undergraduate major, I feel like I'm guessing on half the questions because I'm not sure which one is most likely or least likely. And for me, it was getting really good on the calculator. Read each question carefully. You have to slow down. One of the things when I started, of course, everyone reads the questions way too fast. And what really always tripped me up was the least likely when it's in the negative. So one of the things that I do for its least likely or most likely is you write down it's true or false. If it's true, then it's most likely. If it's false, it's least likely. Long questions, you'll know that the CFA, the exams are written by CFA charter holders. They're designed so that not everyone's going to pass. The questions are challenging. Some of the questions are super long to read. So one of the tips that you'll find is that, hey, I'm going to have to read the answer anyhow. I'm going to read I see a long question. I'm going to read the answers first and then go back and start to read, and you know what you're looking for already. And sometimes you don't have to read the whole question, or you know you're filtering out a lot of the red herring information. Sometimes you're not exactly sure, but obviously you eliminate the, oh yeah, I know for sure that's wrong. I know that's for, get it down to the 1 or 2. Answer all questions. There's no penalty for getting questions wrong. As I said, you've got to manage your time. That wasn't a problem for me. I'm sort of type A, super fast. But managing your time, the more you practice, the more you get comfortable with how you are in terms of managing your time. One of the things, don't do all the math in your head when it says most likely to increase the ratio or least likely to make the ratio better or worse. There's a lot of questions like that in the accounting. I would always just sit down and make a little hypothetical, turn it into a quantitative question for myself. using tens, ones, and hundreds or thousands. And I say, okay, 10 over 1 is 10, 10 over 2 is 5. Oh yeah, obviously it went down. I know that sounds simple, but when your adrenaline is pumping, when you're in the heat of the moment, doing all calculations in your head and saying, yeah, I know that when the questions are put to you, most likely, least likely, is difficult. Make little examples. You can skip questions and go back. Calm your nerves by starting with your best. I really felt that in the afternoon sessions, they always start with some really, really tough questions. Stay focused and avoid distractions. Scout the exam location. I had a close friend in Taiwan that went to the wrong address. He had to wait a year to rewrite the exam. Wake up the same time all week, because if you're a nighttime person and like to sleep in, when you wake up and have to show up to that exam time, you may be tired. And I said, exercise and sleep well. Being rested is really the key. I think all the studies show that a rested brain works best. Okay. In terms of the question format, there's two basic formats that are used: sentence completion and questions with 3 unique choices. All questions are of equal weighting. Okay. All right, so just give me a pause here, just check. Okay, just gonna skip over this in the interest of time. So we can see sentence completion. One of the things I just want to show you here, and this is getting back to my tip on calculator time, is that here, this is from one of the old mock exams, by the way. I think it was the 2010 mock exam. And you can see that in this question, it's an accounting question. The cash conversion cycle in days is closest to what? And they've given you the number of days receivable, inventory, and payables. So this is a calculation question. It's from the accounting section. And you can see that the solution is quite easy. That to do the cash conversion cycle, it's simply the number of days of inventory plus the number of days of receivables minus the days of payables. So that is clearly not, if you know the formula, that it's this plus that minus that. And by the way, you can see this was straight out of the a mock exam. That's not going to take you 90 seconds. However, here's the same question, okay, asking about the cash conversion cycle, but they've given you all kinds of different data here: sales, cost of goods sold, interest expense, cash and marketable accounts receivable. Boy, this is a 90-second question. It might even be over 90 seconds, because what's happening here is you have to do all these sub-calculations. And with the CFA, the more practice that you do on the questions, you'll see there's some questions that I have to do 2 or 3 sub-calculations. And this gets to my point that the more you practice, the better you are at doing the sub-calculations. The more you practice with your calculator, the quicker you get. Speed is a skill. Skill gets rewarded. I think, of course, and it comes back to the question bank, doing as many questions as possible. I like the calculation. I call these low-hanging fruit. You should be able to solve this and get it right. It's not difficult. But what happens with some candidates, they say, oh, geez, this is going to take me too long. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to guess. And really, my message is that through practice, through time, this type of question should be an easy one. It should be the one you like, because you say, oh, I know these ratios. I know how to do the calculations fairly quickly. I know there's a fair bit to the sub-calculation, but if I crank it out, I know I'm going to have the right answer. Okay. All right. So those are some of my tips to passing. Probably you've heard some of this advice before from many people. I think one of the areas that I'm a little bit different is perhaps in terms of my strategy for time off, and recommending that take time off at the beginning and build up some momentum. Not doing everything in order, doing something that may be difficult at first, reward it with something easier, having a very, very strong, tight time budget and study budget. So with that, I guess we'll wrap it up into a little bit of the Q&A.